So good morning, everybody in Cyberland. It's a beautiful day here, March the 16th, 2021, and I am honored to be hosting the second Learning from the Land series, but the first of 2021. And the schedule in front of you gives you a great idea of what we're in for today. And again, tomorrow, a little different schedule. But before I begin, I would like to acknowledge where we're coming to you from. Some of us are in the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq. Some of you would be in Passamaquoddy territory, and we're being hosted this morning in the traditional ancestral territory of the Wolastoq peoples. And with that said, I have to give you my, I have to say, we are honored to have Grand Chief Ron Tremblay open for us this morning. And Ron, I'd like to offer you virtually, if you can see it. If you can't, trust me, I am handing you a beautiful bundle of tobacco to say thank you. And you let me know, and the class is in virtual land, when you would like the screen shifted, and you have a wonderful 45 minutes to share your story, the creation of Wolastoq. Thanks, Ron.
You will even Pamela, good to be Skidinawado, good to be Laza welcome to Sideba Mouse Wagon. Good to be Democrated Archo Yak Genzos work what at the gold needed Chibano, Zonasno, Ski Arsenal, Larpeg Westno. Good to be Laza welcome wa Nigwis Sid Skik Kamek. Talks with Mozigisk, Naga Westpadel said, Naga Nibau said, Naga Psida Mouse Wagon, good away, was about to walk in up, Psida Way Caesar, could you do cheese at the mass with the Zip Caesar, Naga Psi, the Mangwanal, Zebel, the Bo Caesar, Wispamo, the Begil. Naga good we Laza welcome up to the Wajawal, Naga Edligok, you had Pizonal, Naga Major Waganal, Gako Goose Wagodam Nil, Naga also Wagodam, Middle age. First and foremost, I wanted to give gratitude to all life. Starting with the ancestors who dwell in the east, the ancestors who dwell in the south, in the west, and in the north. And I asked them to come and give us guidance today. And I'm very thankful to our great Mother Earth and all she provides us, and all the animals that live and dwell within her and on her, with the four-leggeds, the creepy crawlers, the birds and the fish. And I'm thankful for all the water systems, the rivers, the lakes, the streams, the oceans, the marshes, and the brooks. And I'm very thankful for also the medicines and the food that still grows within our territory. And I asked them to guide us also today, and from the surface of the earth to the center of the earth and all that lives in between. And above the world, our father sky, our grandmother moon, our grandfather sun, and our sisters and brothers the stars. And I asked them to come down and watch us. And part of our creation story and who we are part of a larger confederacy. We are from the Wabanaki, which is a Wabanaki confederacy. And part of our creation story gives us that responsibility when the sun rises, when our grandfather rises in the east, that we get up and we give gratitude to him and to all life. And as he walks across the sky and he takes all our prayers and thoughts of gratitude forward with him, and he shines what we project out there in the universe out towards the other lands of our sisters and brothers across the earth, so they will feel our gratitude. And the next morning we start over again, continue with that momentum of gratitude. And I recall one time when I was in ceremony with one of the elders, and he said, you know, Ron, he said, we always send out gratitude for the things that we see out on the earth. You know, we see the trees, the animals, and the sky, and the moon, stars. He says, but there is more life that's below our feet than there is above our feet. He says, and the life below our feet is what really sustains us, and what really gives us life and provides life for us. He says, from the core of the earth, where that liquid is, that hot lava liquid is that produces the heat for the earth, and all those levels of that wonderful earth, and those the aquifers of water, and all the insects who work very, very hard to keep the earth the way it is in good balance. We need to be thankful for things that we do not see, especially those things below our feet. And in our language, we call that lumkik, which means in the earth, and spumkik is above the earth, and that's what we are thankful for, what's below our feet and what's above our feet. So I wanted to put forward those prayers of gratitude for all life. And we as humans were planted here last, and I will share with a part of my creation story, and another thing that a lot of times we fail to be grateful for, as we see the beautiful Wolastoq picture on the screen here, is that river and all water systems, and water gives us life, and that's probably our most sacred and what really needs to be protected resource, and we don't really call it a resource, but it's water's life, and same with the earth. Earth is life, and that's why it's so crucial that we know how we are connected to the earth, and how we are connected to water. And if you look at our DNA in our bodies, we come from the earth, and we do come from mostly water. So that's why we are so deeply connected to earth and water, and that's what sustains us. So part of my presentation and my thoughts and words of gratitude this morning is going to be on our creation story. And first and foremost, I want to share how we as Wolastoquewi, and in a broader sense, Wabanoquewi is the people of the dawn were created. And this first man, Wolastoq, where a lot of people know him as Wolastoq, but in our language we call him Wolastoq, which refers to the good man who bears the truth. So Wolastoq was first created from the earth by a huge lightning storm that struck the land 3 times in a very, very precise spot. And Wolastoq was created from the lightning strike, and from the rain, and from the earth, and he grew from there, and he lived with all creation for a long time, with the animals and the water and the earth and everything. And at one time he became very, very bored, and he was living with his grandmother, groundhog, Munimquest. And he asked his grandmother how can I help create people that look like me? So grandmother told him to go to the east and to build a fire and to stay there for 4 days and listen for the following certain messages that he would receive. So he did. So he walked all the way to the east, where the border of water and earth, where the ocean was. So the first night he built a fire, and then he was told to cut a branch off a tree and to whittle it and to make a bow. And the next night he was told to make from the same tree to chop a smaller branch and whittle the stick down to make the arrow. And then eventually he was told to chisel a rock, shale rock, to make the arrowhead. And then eventually he was talking to his brother, the owl, and he asked the owl if he can borrow 3 feathers, and he put the 3 feathers on the other end of the arrow. And then he had asked his brother Moose if he can take his life, so he could use the sinew from his back, his vertebrae from his back, to tie the arrow and the bow together. So the 4th morning, prior to the rising of grandfather's sun, he walked to the edge of the big water, the ocean. And then as grandfather's sun was rising, he turned his back to him. And then before him was a huge tree, the ash tree. And as soon as the first light hit the top of the ash tree, he let the arrow go, and he struck the ash tree, and he split the ash tree in half. And a huge thunder sound shook the earth. And as the tree split in half, these beautiful people, these brown skinned, dark-eyed, dark-haired people arose, and they were born from the roots and the deep earth from this ash tree, and they came up, and they put their feet on the earth, and from that day on, Wolastoq called them Wolastoquewi, people of the dawn, because they were born during the dawn of time, when the grandfather's sun hit his beautiful light on top of that beautiful ash tree. And to this day, our people still use that tree to make baskets and to weave those beautiful baskets to remind us where we come from. We came from that beautiful tree. And Delbert's mom and dad used to make these beautiful baskets. In fact, I still have one of their baskets that they made years ago for me. And this is a beautiful story to remind us where our roots, literally our roots, come from that tree. And the base of the basket, the bottom of the basket, is the ancestors who hold all our wisdom and knowledge all together. And the weaving that comes up from the sides of the basket are the people, our great grandparents, who are weaved in to hold that knowledge and wisdom together. And the very top of the basket, the rim that holds the basket together, are our children and our grandchildren, who put all our knowledge and wisdom together. And the basket is who we are. It's our community. And this is clearly shows how we are weaved together, and we as the Wabanaki nations stay firmly together. And that story was told to me years ago. I was just a little boy visiting my my Aunt Millie's store, and this guy, his name was Kuzi, and Kuzi was a Passamaquoddy man who used to come visit, and he was my to the uncle of Frank of of that store. So I remember him sharing that beautiful story years and years ago. This was around 50 plus years ago. And so just this past probably 15 or 20 years ago, when Dave Purley was working for the Department of Education here, he hosted a gathering of the elders across the Wabanaki territory. And I gracefully hosted the gathering at our place out in Charter Settlement. And Cozy came and so he brought his sidekick, David Francis, at the time. And I recall Cozy sharing that story again, that very same story when I was a little boy, about the creation of the Wabanaki. So I thought I'd share that beautiful story, how we were created. And I want to share how the Wolastoq was created. So the Wolastoq people eventually moved up to where we live today, up and down this beautiful river we call Wolastoq, and it's called the Beautiful and Bountiful River. And at the time, we were called Kiwahizawejik, which is muskrat people. We weren't called Wolastoquewi at the time. And so what happened was that our people were living up and down the valley, and the river was not formed yet, but we were living towards the base of the ocean, down where St. John is right now. So one day, this huge creature came and he built the dam, a huge dam of rocks, huge boulders to hold back the water from our people. So anyway, so our people started to die of thirst and to die from not having the access to the beautiful water. So eventually, Wolastoq woke up and he can hear us crying. So he came down and he visited our people. And so our people had held ceremonies for many days and many nights, asking for help from Wolastoq. So he finally heard us, and he came down and he realized that a lot of our people had died. And he said, what is going on? So eventually, Wolastoq spoke to the people, the elders, and they said there's this huge creature who's holding back the water, and he won't give the access to the water to our people. So Wolastoq said, I want you to send with me a couple of your men who can witness what will go down. So they walked down to the area where this huge creature was holding back the water. So Wolastoq went and he spoke to this creature. So he asked this creature, please let the water go and put down these huge boulders, because people are dying. The elders, the women, the children, the men are dying. And the huge creature refused. So eventually, the second time Wolastoq asked him, he wasn't as polite, and he said, for the second time, I'm going to ask you to remove those boulders, and the huge creature refused again. So the third time Wolastoq asked him, he said, remove those boulders, and the creature refused again. So Wolastoq pushed down a huge tree, and as he pushed down a huge tree, the huge tree squashed that green huge creature, and as the tree fell and the huge tree put a great indent in right into the earth, and that's what created the Wolastoq. And if you can see up above, if you had the aerial view of what the Wolastoq looked like, it does look like a huge tree, and all the tributaries are the branches, and the leaves are the lakes, the marshes, and the little branches that stem out from the big branches are the brooks and the streams. So Wolastoq had crushed this huge creature, and it removed all these rocks, and then eventually the people who were once called Wolastoquewi muskrat people, from that day were called Wolastoquewi, the people of the beautiful and bountiful river. So this huge tree had created this wonderful river for the people. So the people were so grateful to Wolastoq that night that they held a huge feast for him. And this is how this beautiful river was created. And this river connects to the ocean, and it reminds us our deeper connection to the water and to the earth. And if you noticed with our stories that a lot of our food and our medicine derives from the river and the banks of the river. Our muskrat root comes from the banks and the marshes that are connected to this river. And even still today, we pick and use that wonderful root to help us when we have certain sicknesses that go through, either a sore throat or even bronchial things, that we seep this wonderful root for cures. And a lot of our medicines grow up and down the river, golden thread and the berries and nuts that grow next to the river. And I thought I want to share this one more story, this moving story. As I was a little boy, and I remember I'm the youngest of 10, and all my siblings were going to school at the time, and I was home with my mom, and we used to go down to visit my grandparents down the road, we called it, and Louis and Madeline Sapir. And I remember one spring morning, we walked down in the beautiful sun, and then we walked to the backyard, and my grandfather was working on his garden. So my mom went inside to visit my grandmother, and I stayed back with my grandfather and watched him work the land. And then I remember him say, and which means come here, my son, at the banks of the river. So he went on telling me the story about. He said, he said, across the river, he said, I used to pick all my medicine here. He said, all the medicine that I needed. He said, there was muskrat root there around the islands, and various medicines. And there was berries that grew there. There were nuts that grew there. And he said, then they built those dams, he said. And then he went on saying, he said, when I was a young man and young boy, he said, I remember when the salmon used to come up and spawn during the springtime. And he said he could hear the salmon coming before he seen them, because he said it sounded like a huge freight train coming up the river, and the water was shaking, he said, and you can see the huge ripples on top, and the salmon would come up. he said there were so many salmon you could walk on their backs across the river. He said, and he said, I remember my parents saying, Najib Pan Balamcho, he said, go get the salmon. We're going to have supper. So he'd say, so he told me he would go down and he would just wade in the water, and then he could actually grab a salmon with his bare hands. He didn't have to use a net or a rod because there were so many salmon. So he said we would have a feast that night and have a really good meal from salmon. He says for a few days. He said, and then he said again. He said, then those dams were built, and then we lost our salmon. And I remember looking up at his wrinkly but beautiful face, and he had a tear coming down his cheek as he was telling me that story. And I said, wow, that's the first time I ever seen my grandpa cry. He was a tough little old man. And so these stories and these really are tattooed in my brain and in my mind, that I would never forget these, because they're such, our stories are teachers, and they teach us so much, how we're so connected to the land and so on. So now I just want to go through some vocabulary I think I can share. And I think Delbert's still on here, and Delbert will probably recognize these words. And this really helps us to understand who we are and what our responsibilities are to the people that live around us, and to the earth, and to all living things. And this is what I kind of failed to mention before, is that when we were born and Wolastoq was there to greet us, Wolastoq gave us very strict and powerful teachings, and gave us responsibilities as Wolastoquewi in how we were supposed to live on the earth. Those were the original teachings. And I failed to mention also is that our very first treaty was with the earth. And that we agreed that we would live in balance, and we would respect the earth, we would protect the earth, and we would protect the areas in which we were given responsible to take care of. So as we grow and our people lived on and on, we seem to have lost that vision and those wonderful teachings and those responsibilities. And I hope that our young people will take on these responsibilities and take a better care of the earth and the water, because we always think 7 generations forward, and this is why we want to keep the earth and the water and the air pure and safe for the future generations. And as you see here, I hope you can all see, I'll try to make it a little bit bigger, the word skiktgamik, which refers to the earth, the world, the planet, and the surface of the earth. And the earth is a powerful being, and we view the earth as a living thing, and the earth is not a noun where a lot of people think that the earth, the world, or even dirt and water are nouns, but what they're actually verbs, because they're actually moving and they grow and they live. So we want to respect that fact. And And the next word that I want to share is skiji or skij or skikt, which refers to on the surface and skimming the surface. It's a preverb, and as you will see later on, when I share the other words, is that skiji or skij or skik is a preverb referring to, you know, the surface or the skim and so on. So and the next word that I want to share is skijin. And I used to think that skijin meant just a native person, you know, because I have on my license plate skijin, and I had that for a long time. And once I started to research our language more in depth, I found out that skijin actually means a human being, a surface dweller, one who is united to the surface of the earth. So the word like skiju means the surface. So skijin is a person who is actually united or connected to the surface of the earth. And if you look at the next word, skijinawikuk, which means in or on indigenous land, or in or on the homeland of the surface dweller, which are human beings. So, and again, reflecting on the earth and the use of the earth and medicines, skijinui pizon, which means traditional medicines of the in indigenous medicines. So it you know, when my grandfather and used to pick the medicines, the gilhazabusk and the golden thread and so on, you know, and I remember him always referring that to skijinui pizon. And we had a woman, Monique Nicholas was her name, who used to live in Tobic, and that was Raymond Nicholas's mother. And I remember my mom saying that Monique was this medicine woman who used to collect a lot of medicines, and she was well known within the community. When somebody was sick, she always had in her back room all these jars of various medicines that she knew that can help people when they become sick. So, and the very next word is skijinui, which means she or he understands the indigenous languages. And I was always told by the elders that our language comes from the earth. Because if you look at our language, and Delbert will probably concur and agree with me, is that our language is very verb-based, and our languages are actually verbs. The majority of our words are verbs, and we were taught for a long time, like even the word duipud, which is table, or gudabud, which is chair, are nouns. But if you break down that word, duipud, what that word actually means is a place where you eat. And gudabud, that obu, which means, which is chair, is a place where you sit. And even a moon, like we don't even have a word in our language for the, we have a word for moon. And moon is, Nibau said, one who walks through the sky at night. And we have an old word that I remember my grandfather using for sun. It's Wespadauset, which is the one who walks through the sky during the daytime. And words like pasaqsit, which defines the stars, but it really defines what they do is they sparkle and they shine. And that's what they do at nighttime. So our language is so verb-based, and it really shows us our deep connection to all living things. And the next word I want to share is Skijinuwida Hazo, which means she or he like thinks like an indigenous person. And I remember I remember my grandfather always telling me, Skijinuwida Hazo was, think like us, think like an indigenous person. And I used to wonder what the heck that meant when he used to tell me that. I said, why would I am Wolastoq, and why would I think differently? But him knowing that I was going to school and to be taught the English language and the concepts from from Western society, he knew that for me never to lose the ideology of who we are and how we think. And this beautiful next word is Skijinuwage, means she or he dances an indigenous dance. And Delbert used to tear up the floor pretty good. He used to be a real good dancer back in the day. I remember watching him dance. They used to have a dance group in our community, and I remember Delbert and his brother Barney and my sister Roseanne and numerous people who used to dance during our festivities in our community. And to conclude the words, I'd like to share these rest of these three words. Skiju means on the surface. Skiju. And then Skijinuduye means that she or he flies across the surface of something, meaning a bird or a pilot that's flying a plane. And Skijie, it means that it goes across the surface of something. So I just wanted to leave you with that for this deep understanding of who we are as Skijinuwag and how we are connected to the earth. And it's been a long time that that we talk like this, because we've been taught through Western society for far too long. And once you start to dive and to dissect our words and to understand our beautiful language and to understand what our responsibilities and how deeply connected we are from the deepest root of that tree to the surface of the earth and the above world, and how we are connected, and how we should be treating the earth, and how we should be treating the water and the animals and all living things. And I think I'll conclude with that. And I hope I gave our language some justice, and these beautiful stories that were shared with me by the elders, and my great memory of my grandfather, Dewey Sapir. So anyway, I want to thank you, Akchiwaliwan, middle age, let that be true, let that be true, let that be true. Lewan.
Walalan, Ron, thank you so much.